The Great Royal Myth of Egypt. In the beginning, when the world was young, the gods, the Netjeru, had created the heavens and the earth and all of the creatures that dwelt therein, the birds, the beasts, the fishes, the insects, the plants, the trees, the coursing of rivers, the growth of mountains. Everything had been created by them, and in due course they had created humanity. By combining the soil from the banks of the river Nile with the tears wept by the eyes of Amun-Ra. Having created humanity, the gods quickly came to realize that humanity was chaotic, was discordant. Some of them wanted this, and some of them wanted that, and some of them wanted something else entirely. They were forever squabbling and disagreeing. And so the gods placed Asur himself, the green-skinned one, as the Per-Ea, the pharaoh, to govern over all of the peoples of Egypt and by extension the peoples of the earth. And to sit at his right-hand side was his consort, his sister, his wife, Aset. And the two of them governed wisely and well. For year after year after year after year, they introduced writing and inventions and law and culture and music and art and civilization and weaving and one gift after another to humanity and the other creatures of the earth. But Asur himself was a wanderer at heart. He was not a sedentary soul. And whilst the lands of Egypt were vast, he always wanted to know what was beyond that mountain, what was beyond that hill, what was beyond that sand dune. Where did this river flow out to? What was on the other side of the oceans where the river flew out to? One thing after another he wished to know. And after many, many years of wise governance, it was agreed that his sister wife, Aset, would govern in his stead, whilst he himself wandered around the lands of the world. And wherever he went, he brought wisdom and culture and knowledge and enlightenment and sophistication, which is why so many other cultures of the world had echoes of the land of Egypt. And this went on for many a long year. And Aset governed as well as a husband, some would say even better. But no one can govern so well that others will not complain about it. No one can do anything so well that there will not be others who complain about it. And one of the ones who complained most strongly, although most quietly, was the brother of Asur, and the brother likewise of his sister wife Aset, the Setekh, the red-skinned lord of the desert, the red-haired lord of the desert. He felt that he should be governing the throne of Egypt, not some wandering philosopher, not some footloose mendicant that would be here and there and everywhere, but he himself who genuinely craved power, who genuinely wanted governance, who felt he could do so much better than either his brother or his sister. And he sought to achieve this by consultation at first, by offering his services, but Aset was wiser than he had given credit for and could see the resentment and the bitterness that fostered in the heart of her brother, and felt that in time, especially fanned by the flames of power, he would become more and more corrupt. And so she refused his offers of help. And indeed, although he didn't become more corrupt on power, he became more bitter, more resentful, more vindictive. He plotted and he plotted and he plotted, and one day he saw his golden chance when it was announced that his brother, green-skinned Asur, was returning from one of his many, many wanderings around the world to a great celebration, a great festival in his honour. And all of the other gods and the goddesses, the Netjeru, they brought gifts of this and gifts of that and gifts of the next thing. And Setekh came before his brother with a gift of a great, huge wooden chest, ornately carved and painted and bejewelled, formed in the shape of a reclining body. And he said, "I give this gift to the court, that whomsoever fits perfectly within this chest, neither too long nor too short, neither too fat nor too thin, but a perfect exact fit inside this chest, shall keep it." And one by one, each of the gods and the goddesses, they got in and they tried it, and this one was too tall, and that one was too short, and this one too skinny, and that one too big, until of course at last the only one left to try was the pharaoh, the Per-Ea himself, for whom the chest had been designed. So, Asur climbed into the chest, and it was a perfect fit, and everyone in the court rejoiced until, in that exact second, when everyone was clapping and cheering, out leapt the 72 followers of Setekh, and they slammed the lid shut upon this chest, and they nailed it down. And then they started fighting off anyone who tried to interfere and prevent them. And between them, they rushed out of the court, carrying the chest with them down to the banks of the River Nile, and they threw it into the waters of the Nile. And off it was carried away upon the current. And nobody knows truly whether Asur suffocated in the airless container of the coffin, of the very first sarcophagus, or whether it sank deeper and deeper into the waters and he drowned. Either way, dead was dead. And Setekh rejoiced at the slaughtering of his brother and said, "With him dead, with him out of the way, I am the true heir to the throne of Kemet, the Black Land, to the throne of Egypt." His sister, Aset, seeing the way things were turning, fled for her life, taking her handmaidens with her, and went deep, deep into the desert. And there she worked her magic. She prayed to Ra for guidance. And the great eternal sun looked down and sent her 7 gigantic scorpions to protect her and guard her. And she wandered around the desert for many a long year, protected and guarded by these scorpions. And after much thinking and philosophizing, she decided she would search out her long-lost husband. And she went from town to town to town, asking for rumours here and rumours there and rumours everywhere. And eventually she was told that the chest had washed up amidst the roots of an enormous tree that grew on the bank of the Nile many, many miles down. And she went to the land where this enormous tree grew, for it was a kingdom outside of Egypt itself. And she was told by some local women that the tree had, several years earlier, been chopped down, because it was a holy tree, it was a sacred tree, and the king and queen of that land had wanted the tree placed in a temple, carved and painted and ornate, and so they had sawed the tree down and had it erected as like a totem pole inside this temple. And it is a whole other story in itself as to how Aset acquired access to this sacred wooden totem, how she had found the chest the sarcophagus contained within it, of how she had freed her husband from the sarcophagus and found his dead body preserved inside and taken it down to the banks of the Nile, and there she had sat working her spells upon it, working her magic upon it, trying to resurrect him. But on all of her travels she had been followed by the spies of her brother Setekh, and he knew what she was up to. And so just as she was about to work the final spell, out he leapt from where he'd been hiding, armed to the teeth with his sword, and he hacked and he hacked and he hacked and he hacked and he chopped the body, the corpse of his dead brother, into 14 separate pieces, whilst his sister Aset looked on with horror, screaming and crying and begging him to stop. And when the body was dismembered, Setekh threw piece after piece after piece into the River Nile, and the waters carried them hither and yon, the length of the river. And his wife, Aset, fled once again for her life. And then she spent many more years tracking down the missing pieces of the body. Where each piece had washed up, there a great temple to Asur was built. She found 13 pieces with her husband. The 14th piece, some men might say the most important piece, had been devoured by the Osiris fish, which dwelt within the Nile, a huge great carp. And so she had to create an artificial one. And she put it in place, and she took bandages and she wrapped these 14 pieces together like a jigsaw. And into the bandages she put oils and ointments and herbs and talismans and amulets to ensure that these 14 pieces not only stayed as a shape, contained together as a body, but were resurrected. But such was the limitation that even she, who was retelling, great in magic, even she could not resurrect him for any great length of time. He came back to life, but only for a period, a short, brief period, an interlude in which husband and wife fell upon each other, raining each other with kisses and intimacies. And when they had finished that, they talked and they talked and they talked until the dawn sun arose and the spirit of the green-skinned god had to depart to the land of Duat, the land of the dead, into the west. And he was gone. And before her was a corpse, a mummified corpse, the first Sar, the first mummy. But as a result of that union, Aset was pregnant with the god Heru, whom the Greeks called Horus. But the story of the burgeoning child within her womb and the life that he was going on to lead is another story, and the end of this one. Thank you.